Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It's Friday night, and you're listening to Paranormal Review Radio with your hosts, Anthony Agati in New York.
And me, Lucy Liebfried from Chicago. We hope you all had a wonderful Christmas. And what a great show we have for you tonight. Our chat room is up and running, so feel free to ask us any questions. And if you lose sound on your player, just refresh your page or log back in. Blog Talk can be a little wacky sometimes. And you can also send us an email at paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com and check us out on our Facebook show page.
You know, last week we had our End of the World party, and I thought it was pretty cool, right, Lucy?
Oh, it was awesome.
I mean, the world didn't end, so there wasn't this big climactic ending to everything, but I thought we had a really good time, and I loved having Sharon from Rolling Hills Asylum on the show and doing that live investigation with her. I haven't checked. I didn't talk to you about this, Lucy. I didn't check to see if there was any evidence that was caught during the night. Did you get a chance to actually review the show and listen to it again?
I listened to the show, but I was just kind of, I was more focused on trying to see how bad I sound. I didn't really go through it again, but I think I need to just, I got 4 days. I'm going to sit down and review it and see if anything came through.
Yeah, because I know when we were listening live, there were a couple instances I remembered hearing a male's voice, and there was some sort of staticky noise that was coming through. I remember saying that and doing a time marker on the show, and it just got crazy after that show because it was the holiday weekend and then right back to work. So I haven't had a chance actually to go back in and check it out, but I will this week. So I'm curious to see if there was anything that actually popped up. But towards the end of the show, we were talking to one of our listeners, Lou Mastriano, who had brought up the topic of orbs. And I mentioned to him that it would be great if he can call in this week for this week's show, and maybe we can talk about it, because orbs seems to be sort of like that four-letter word within the paranormal community. There's a lot of people out there that disprove it. And I can honestly say that I'm sort of one of them. You know, I'm on the fence with orbs, but I lean more towards it, that it can be, I guess, debunked. I hate using that word, but it sort of can be explained in other, I guess, scientific realms or scientific studies as far as something that's actually material, that it could be dust or moisture or bugs or reflections off of things that are shiny once you do take a picture. And I know, Lucy, you have a different view. This is where you and I differ. This is one of the very few topics that you and I differ on.
Mhm. And you know what? Going through everything, yeah. Excuse me. I know people say that orbs are probably, you know, they're dust, they're pollen, they can be ice crystals, snowflakes, even bugs. But honestly, when you look at some of the pictures, I mean, there's two kinds of orbs. There's like the big round ones that you see in photographs. And then there's also like these little, they look like little beams of light. So depending upon what they are, yes, I think some of them actually can be, you know, the dust or the moisture. But some of them, honestly, I have to say, they have to be something because they move. They have certain characteristics that I don't think ice or dust moves like that. And I know that you disagree, and I have to say,
no,
like,
you know what, Lucy, not to interrupt you, but in that instance, when you can, and we're going to get more into this with Lou, and we have him on the call queue right now, actually, and we're going to pick up his line in a few and start the discussion about that. But I just wanted to bring up this one point, that I do agree with you with that there are instances when orbs, and see, this is where I find that you can truly figure out whether or not an orb is something of a physical matter or if it is within the spiritual realm. And with pictures, it's hard to do that. With digital photograph still pictures, it's hard to do that, and it's hard to explain it because you don't see movement. You don't see a beginning and an end to an orb. In video, you can most certainly tell whether or not that it is an orb, or whether it is something that is of dust material or bugs or anything like that by its movement. And there have been a couple of times, and you remember this, Lucy, when actually, again, I keep talking about this one location, Rolling Hills Asylum, where I caught this awesome video on camera of an orb, and the movement of it was what struck me. And I was not able to see it physically with my own eye because I had my video camera in my hand at chest level, and when I panned down my head to look inside the viewfinder or to look at the screen, I noticed it. But when I looked up and I looked in the direction of it, I did not see it. So, there is that sort of little element of whether or not it could be a reflection off of the IR light that I had on my camera. But the movement of this structure, for lack of a better word to say, was very conspicuous, very determined, and it had a direct flight to it. And I still to this day have a question mark over it. I don't consider it a bug or dust or moisture, but I also don't consider it spirit because I'm not too sure yet. So that's one of the defining lines where I find when you're talking about orbs and evidence.
Mhm. See, I have to, and I remember that. I remember seeing it, and it definitely had an up and down movement, and then it moved to the side. And the movement, dust doesn't move like that. A bug wouldn't move like that. It was really a determined way of moving.
Yeah.
So, there's certain things that, for lack of a better explanation, they can't be explained by anything else, and I'm going to go towards, it's got to be some kind of energy. It's got to be maybe not necessarily a spirit, but it's definitely some kind of energy that's moving.
So tonight I just wanted to explain to everyone that, pretty much the title of the show is Open Mic Night. This is you guys, the listeners out there that are listening live. This is your night to bring up topics and discuss it. We like to do this periodically, and I think the last one that we did was on August 10th. And it originally was called, when we originally had it, it was originally called Open Mic Night. And then afterwards, I had actually changed it to specifically what we talked about. And so if you go in our archives and you go back to August 10th within blogtalkradio.com under Paranormal Review Radio, the title of it is called Immortality to Demonology in 120 Minutes. It was a fascinating show where we started to talk about immortality and whether or not it exists, or if it existed, what were your thoughts on it? And between the callers that we had, I think we had roughly maybe 8 or 9 callers that night. And between immortality and a sort of digression then into a few other topics, and then ended up with a demonology when we had a demonologist, a so-called demonologist, call in and talk about his life, his mission, and what he's done within the paranormal field. And we had a lot of conflicting opinions on his life and what he's done. And we thought that was one of the best shows that we had done. Besides the guests that we've had, that was one of the best ones. So we thought we should do it again, open up the lines again, and just see where we go with it. I can say honestly that I don't have all the answers to paranormal questions. I hope if you guys are calling in tonight that we're not looking to answer all your questions. What we want to do is bring up the questions and get the chatter going, get the discussion going, and maybe that we can find out through conversations with everyone tonight, maybe we can find out some real answers or where to go to find these real answers. And so I know one of the topics that we're going to talk about is orbs, and this was brought up by Lou, and hopefully maybe we can bring on some other callers for that. But if you do have a question, give us a call at 661-244-9831, or if you want to just talk about a topic itself, whatever it is, it could be drama within the paranormal field, it could be a specific topic within the paranormal field that you just want to bring up that maybe you think may not have been discussed much or has not been discussed much. You want to talk about paranormal television shows or movies. We are open to anything. Right, Lucy?
Right. You know, you guys listen to us talk all the time. Well, you know, we figured for the last show of the year, we want to hear you talk. We want to hear about what you're thinking about, what has struck your interest. And, I mean, you know, this past year has gone from, it's been a roller coaster ride. I mean, within the paranormal world, there's been so much going on, you know, some of it good, some of it not so good. What did you think? I mean, did anything in particular strike you? Or is there something that you had an opinion on? Well, here's your chance. You know, give us a call. Let us know what you thought about it. You know, it's 661-244-9831.
All right, so we're going to bring on our good friend Lou. Hello, Lou. Are you there?
Yeah, hi. How you doing?
Hey, Lou.
Hey, Lou.
How's it going?
So,
the world didn't end.
The world did not end. I'm glad we had.
How do we know that?
True. You know, people have been saying that all week, and the only answer that I find is maybe this is hell, and I even said it in chat. Maybe this is hell.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it did, and we're in it. That wouldn't be too good, though. I mean, geez, I hope heaven's better than this. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I hope so, too. So, Lou, last week we ended our show with a call from you, and we first started talking about possible confessions, you know, end of the world, doomsday confessions and all that stuff. And then you brought up a really great point, that's something that was troubling you within the paranormal field, that you've had conflicting, I guess, feedback from, or that you're having a hard time researching on, and it's the topic of orbs. And I know within my own experience, I know that a lot of people that I come in contact with are mostly against orbs. There's very few that I have come in contact with that sort of support that idea. So first off, I just wanted to ask you, what has your experience been with the reactions of orbs, and you know, sort of what have people been saying to you, or what have you been hearing about or reading about or listening to and watching that is troubling you and sort of, I guess, encouraging you on this quest to sort of find an answer for orbs?
My experience with orbs started when I was 7 years old. I lived in a house that was one of the first houses built in Westfield, Massachusetts. It used to be a factory, and it was built in the 1700s, which was a button factory. At least that's what I was told, but it's a very old house. And when I was 7 years old, I would see these bright, glowing balls bouncing around my bed. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and there it would be. It was like a ball just bouncing around my bed. And it would bounce out of my bed, and then it would go the doorway into the living room, and then go through there and disappear. So, I mean, that's how it first started with me, from what I remember, was these glowing balls of light. And then my brother started waking up in the middle of the night and seeing shadow people sitting on my bed. So he would wake up and start screaming and yelling, and my dad at the time would come in, and he would, you know, what's going on? He'd turn on the lights, and it would disappear. So I never saw the shadow figures until one instance. I saw it at one point where I woke up, I saw the bright ball bouncing around my bed, and I felt this weight on my bed, and it was like a person. It was like a dark shadow. You couldn't make any features out, but you felt the weight of it when it sat on my bed, and it just spoke to me, and that, which was, you know, said it wasn't going to hurt me, but anyway, that's how it started. So, I mean, for me, they've always been real. I mean, so that's how it started with me. Now, as far as other people go on the internet, I mean, you see a lot of people, oh, it's dust, it's fake, it's this, it's that, and, you know, personally, I think that there's something here, you know. There's something real and something to be obtained, some knowledge to be obtained from this if we continue with it and not just shelf it.
See, and I think that's the difference between real and not real, is to physically see the orb and not have it only visible on camera, on digital camera, still pictures, or on video. You know, and the only way to actually convey that is to tell your story. And when people tell a story, you know, there's always that doubt that the listener has in their mind about it, but the person who's experiencing it, you know, there is no doubt at all. It's 100% confirmed. And so I believe you in the fact that if you physically are seeing these, then they are orbs. They are of the spiritual realm, because to me an orb, excuse me, to me an orb has to individually emit its own light to be called an orb. And so if it's emitting its own light and not being, illuminated by your IR camera or your digital camera, whatever it is, to cause that light, that to me possibly may not be an orb. But if it is emitting its own light, then to me it is 100% an orb. That's my belief.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
I agree.
One of the things that I found, I did some research on orbs and stuff like that, and you know, it's not just something that we're seeing now. I mean, there's been instances where historically there's been paintings, people that, you know, are trying to put put down what they've seen. And one theory that I found really, really intriguing was when you talk about saints, you know, when you talk about religious icons, and the circle of light that usually appears around their head, the halo. There was one theory that kind of like put up the fact that what if this was some kind of orb that was seen around this person? You know, how do you see a halo? It could have been some kind of orb or some kind of ball of light that was seen around them. Could it have been energy? Could it have been an angel? So that was one thing that really just struck me. I mean, I know, like what you're saying, Anthony, you know, that if you see it physically, it probably is, you know, some kind of energy. But you got to realize that a lot of these people that have seen it, the way that they're portraying it or trying to get it across to other people, they're drawing these pictures. And, of course, we have photography now. And, you know, being sick, I got to stay in bed, and I think I watched 24 hours of my ghost story. And there was one story in particular where it was based around orbs. And this family had taken pictures, and, of course, there was one orb in particular, and they said that they saw their mother's face inside the orb. Now, things like that, I'm going to say I do kind of disagree with it. I mean, sometimes it seems a little bit impossible, but could it be? I mean, could it actually be a ball of energy where you can see an apparition inside of it?
Well, I can debate you on that, but I want, and we probably will get into this debate very soon about the faces thing. But I wanted to hear from Lou about what his Lou. You recently, have you been looking into it a lot more than before? I know you told us a story that this happened when you were a child. Have you always been researching it and looking into it, or is it just recently, within the past year, that you've sort of heavily delved into the topic of orbs?
I've always known about it, but as far as, you know, recently researching, I have been doing more research into it in the past year because of all the kickback from it and all the, you know, it started with Ghost Hunters, which, don't get me wrong, I love that show. I think Jason is great, Grant, all those guys are awesome, but I just think that the way the topic of orbs was shelved, I didn't appreciate that too much because from my standpoint, because I've seen them, I know they're there. And I call them, I named them myself, I call them God's Eye. Because I think my understanding of them is different. I think the perspective, and this is just my theory and my idea, is that, if there was another life and spiritually that you were going to be revisited, it would come in an all-seeing perspective. And what would be an all-seeing perspective? It would be in the shape of an orb. That's what I would assume, anyway. And that's what I would theorize, because I don't know if you've ever done any diving, scuba diving.
No.
As I dive, it's funny because you're in a whole other world. You're under the sea, you're under the water, and it's like air bubbles that come up from you or your tanks. These are phenomena that aren't normally there in the water. You're producing them. You're bringing the air into that environment. And how does that air take on? How does it form itself? Well, it forms itself in the shape of a ball. Now, I don't know what the only comparison. The reason I bring it up is because of something foreign from our environment being brought into another foreign environment, which is one we're not supposed to be in, which is the water. So I'm thinking maybe that'd be a good way of looking at it as far as a spiritual orb. They're no longer part of our existence or our plane of existence. So they form themselves in this ball of light, which is an all-seeing perspective, which I would hope our spiritual selves are.
Right.
So that's
right.
why I call them God's eye, because of that idea and that perspective.
So do you physically believe that the actual orb itself, that ball of light, is the spirit form in itself, or is it something else?
I've been researching in the field ever since I can remember. I mean, I started reading books. My mom thought I was unusual because I read so much, starting when I was 9 years old, and it was always nonfiction. It was always about, I remember one of my first books was Chariots of the Gods, and I find out that was quite a few other people's first book, but that's how it got me started in the field, though. And as far as, I think that it has something to do, I think that it is. I mean, when we think of the way we are in this life that we live right now, we have two eyes, and we only see, like what I call, it's like tunnel vision. It's what we understand about the what we have around us is because of what we envision, what we see. But it's not it's kind of two-dimensional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But but to think in outside the box kind of a way, I would think that in an energy form, well, there's not eyes per se. You're seeing in an all-encompassing view. You know what I mean? So, in other words, there's no limitations of the brain. Anything that you can imagine or anything that you can envision is in a 4D type universe. You know what I mean?
Right.
I keep saying that, but I'm hoping you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, it's three dimensions and time. I know it all. Yep.
Yeah, and so I'm, that's kind of where I'm going with it. There's just so many. We have DNA. They've just come up recently, not too long ago anyway, as far as getting blood evidence from old case files. And if they had taken that blood evidence from say 30 years ago and they threw it out, then we wouldn't be able to be solving these new crimes today. So as far as pictures of orbs and stuff like that go, well, we might not understand them or know how to tell a real one from a fake one at this point, but don't throw out the evidence. Put it aside until there's a better or more well-defined way of looking at them. You know what I mean? In that way.
Yeah, I agree. Even though I don't, I'm sort of, 90 to 99%. Pretty much in my reactions to orbs is that it could be dispelled into something else that's more of matter. But I do believe the fact that you should not disband it and, delete it and get rid of it. I think you should hold on to it because who knows in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years what, I'm not going to say scientific research because I don't think the scientific community is ever going to get involved, but I think the paranormal community itself will start to get more answers and not probably directly studying orbs, but possibly studying other facets of the paranormal field that can lead back to orbs. And so I agree with you. I wouldn't want anyone to throw it away and discard it and just, whatever. they may have their opinion about it, but hold on to it. I agree with you 100% on that.
Right, because we might come up with a technology. I mean, geez, a technology today is advancing leaps and bounds in 1 year. I mean, who knows? Maybe the next 2 years we'll have some kind of color lens or some kind of new technology where you could just actually take it, put it over the photograph, and say, oh, there's a real one. Nope, that one's not. That one's just a refraction from the camera. But there might be a better way of looking at this and explaining it or being able to figure it out in that way. But the bottom line is so many people out there just are so willing just to throw it away. Oh no, that's camera, that's lens flare, that's a piece of dust. Bottom line is they don't really freaking know. They don't know what it is. Bottom line, it could be dust, it may not be, but the thing is they're very similar. It's hard to tell. You know what I mean? And
I think right, and I think the reason why a lot of people do that is because people tend to sort of follow the leaders and follow the masses of whatever it is, whatever field and genre that you're in, they sort of follow it and gravitate towards that. And if the majority of people are saying that orbs are dust and nonsense and whatever, most of the people within that field are going to say the same thing because they want to follow it. They want to be within that group, that clique. And so there's only a select few that, will be sort of the rebel within that area and debate it like you. And so that's the reason why we love to do this, and I can possibly, I guess, speak for Lucy, that she and I are almost the same in that we do have opinions on the things within the paranormal field, but we're not here to negate or put down anyone or anything that comes up. It may be something that we debate and talk about, and there are things that have happened to us that we've experienced or have had evidence of, but we will debate it, and I will doubt, even evidence that I create or I get, and so I'm going to put it aside, and hopefully later on I may hear something or see something that may click for a reason as to why that had happened or why I caught that picture or why I got that video. And so, I think that's the reason why a lot of people tend to put this down is because the majority of the paranormal field do not agree with orbs as being a spirit.
I agree exactly. I know exactly what you're saying. It's too bad because in the society we live today, it's like you have to question these things, especially if you're an investigator. And I understand that fully. But my issue has always been, oh no, that's crazy. Just throw it out. It's this, it's that, and that's what I have issue with. I just think it does the field a disservice because what are we if we're paranormal researchers and paranormal investigators? Then we're researching and investigating the paranormal. So we don't know. We really literally don't know, and that's why we do this, to try to figure out what it is. So how could we be so matter-of-fact about something and be able to say that and be so matter-of-fact about it and throw it out when we really don't know? That's my pet peeve. That's my big issue with orbs. It's one of those things. It's like I grit my teeth every time I see someone do that. Oh, it's lens flare. It's like, how do you know? Did you take the picture? Do you know what went on in that house when this occurred? Did you hear the whole story? You know what I mean, Anthony?
Right.
It's crazy.
But I think you have to, and I totally understand what you're saying. But I think you still have to respect, their ideology, their opinions, their, final results on whatever study or amount of study that they've done on any kind of topic. And I think, again, and I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I think that's then where you get into the paranormal drama of the field. And then that's when everybody starts to fight and bicker amongst each other because everyone thinks that they're right. And everyone is right. I truly believe that. I think everybody is right in their own realm. I think it's all a matter of experience. To me, evidence really is nothing. And this is actually going to lead into another topic that I wanted to talk about or bring up, if nobody was going to bring up a topic, about what is real evidence. What evidence, let me see, what is the question? What kind of paranormal evidence will finally be proof? Who's going to make that decision? And who do we consider to be the person to make that decision for us, or what group of people will do that? And so this can apply to orbs. How do we turn and that could be my next question to you. I'm sorry. How can we turn the masses around to think otherwise of orbs? How do you have, I don't know if you've ever thought of this question, but how can we turn around people to not make them believe it, but see the other side of it and maybe have a question mark as what we do as far as, weighing both options and leaving it at that? How do we turn everybody else around to sort of see what we're thinking about?
Well, I have done a lot of thought into that, and I think, first of all, I just want to say I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's about personal experience, and that's what causes us to investigate it. When it happens to us, it's dramatic, and it wakes you up. It's an epiphany, and you know it. You don't believe in it anymore at that point. You know it. It's a knowing, not a believing. And that's why I do what I do as far as research goes. But as far as the orbs go, as far as how you can bring the community around in their thinking, I don't know. I mean, I've looked into this over the years. I've tried to figure it out. I've had my own theories, and the closest I could come is tell people, this stuff happens all the time. We see similar things all the time. That's why I brought up diving with the bubbles in a different environment. And I also mentioned something at one point in a blog. I think it was about ball lightning, which is very similar. And it was actually, they thought it was a devil, 100 years ago when people saw ball lightning. And they actually thought, it was a witch that did it or this or that. But we understand it now as like a plasma formation of, a storm effect or a cloud effect or something like that. And we just recently learned about sprites that actually, when there's a storm going over, there's actually sprites that go up into space, go up into the opposite direction, not towards the Earth, but upwards. I don't know if you've heard about that, but I mean, it's recent. Yeah,
but you know what?
It's actually thousands
Lou,
of them.
What you guys are talking about, I think that's the beauty of this field, though, because there is no textbook and there is no rules. And I think the most important thing that I think an investigator can have is an open mind, instead of just going and discounting something right away and saying, oh, no, that's dust. Part of what we do as investigators is to look at everything, look at all the aspects, look at the conditions. Before you either say something isn't something, have you really gone through everything? Have you looked at the conditions? Have you looked at other people's, is there someone else in the room that's seen it? Has someone else taken the same picture? I mean, let's say you've got an investigation, a group investigation, and there's 10 people using 10 different cameras, okay? And there's 35 millimeters, there's night vision, everything. And half of these investigators get some orbs. Are they all water spots? Are they all dirt? That means like all 5 of these people probably had similar dirt on their lens. How can that be explained?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's bringing, I agree 100%, that's what's bringing us to understand this. But, I guess for a lot of us, it's crazy because the people that you really want to be looking at this as a scientist, so that they could really be helping us out in that way. As far as Einstein's theories, he talked about, time portals and doorways, and actually proved it, as far as, traversing, what do you call that, like the time machine, going through time and space and all that. He actually has a formula for that, and he actually proved it with atomic clocks. So, I mean, I think that we can, as we evolve or we develop, I mean, sooner or later we will understand this, and I think we're supposed to. But this is the way to do it, and what the investigator and the researcher does. But it's sad that science won't even acknowledge it. It's like, we wouldn't, I've said this before, we wouldn't have an airplane, we wouldn't have a helicopter, we wouldn't have what we have now in technology if it wasn't for somebody saying, hey, I can fly. And people look at them and say, you're friggin' nuts. Only birds can do that. So, but we're doing it now. I mean, so, and this is what the paranormal is. We're dealing with these things that we just don't understand. And hopefully we can get some answers. But this is the way you do it. Like you said, Lucy and Anthony, it causes us to question because we're the experiencers. We're the ones that see it, and we have this epiphany, just like the Wright brothers did about manned flight. So you got to see it to believe it. So.
Right. You know, we get on this topic and everybody talks about it continuously, about the paranormal field. And I guess what it all comes down to and what it boils down to is there life after death? And do we then become a spirit form, and do we, travel interdimensionally and all of that stuff? And I can equate that to the idea or the actual conversation that we had with Mike Barra, who was on, he's a commentary host on Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. And we had him on the show, I can't remember now, maybe it was a month ago. And the topic, I guess, at hand during that time, even on the news, was the Mars rover. And everywhere that you looked, everywhere that you anything that you watched on television or read online or read in the paper was scientists and NASA trying to find out whether there was life on other planets. Now, I sort of question, and I said this to Mike Barra, I sort of question how they are going about trying to find if life is on other planets. And this may sound weird, but you can sort of correlate this to the idea of whether or not there's life after death. And so we are basing, or not we, but NASA and the scientists are basing their constructive reports and analysis based on what they know. And what they know is what life is like here on Earth. Obviously, we don't know what life is like on other planets or anywhere else in the universe. So we're basing it on that there's a need for water, this liquid water. And they're trying to find, and they're determined to find, I'm hoping, that they're determined to find liquid water on other planets, and therefore they can say life is possible. Now, we know life is possible with water and oxygen here on Earth, but life could be completely possible with other elements that we have no idea even exist, even minerals, even gases, anything like that. There could be other things in the world and in the universe that we have no idea about, we have never come in contact with, that could sustain and create life. And so we're sort of limited, and NASA is limiting themselves to that fact. And I'm sure they're trying to find other gases and other minerals and all this other stuff. And if it's different, they're probably going to study it. But and you mentioned this before about tunnel vision. It seems as though that they've got this tunnel vision to try and find liquid water. The same can be said for life after death. And we're trying to, and it's mostly the scientists, are basing their ideas and interpretations on the idea of, okay, well, it's a physical body and all the matter that we have and atoms and energy and everything else, but we have no idea how spirits are after we die and what they're made of and how they form and how they appear and how they live, quote-unquote, live after death. We have no idea, and so to dismiss all these topics that, all the evidence and all the discussions and experiences that people are having is foolishness. And I equate that to what the scientists in NASA are doing with the Mars rover right now.
Oh, my God. I mean, I completely agree with that. I mean, you're right. That's all they do. They base it on a carbon-based form of life, and that's what they're looking for, something that's based in carbon that's tangible, what we know. And right. You're right. That's what it is. It's weird. People that are in this field right now I don't even think they realize that they're on the verge of. They talk about a new beginning, and they're talking about how the world's going to change. Well, you know something. When we finally come to a consensus and understanding on this, and we really start putting serious investigation into this. And hopefully somehow the science community will start looking at this in a different way and investigating it and doing scientific research. We're at the verge of a whole new beginning right there. Our understanding of why we're here.
Paranormal. We are the paranormal investigators. We are the adventurers. We are the ones that are going to find this. I mean, think about it. Go back to when everyone believed the Earth was flat, and they believed that if you sailed far enough, you were going to fall off the edge of the Earth. It took that one person who actually did keep sailing. So I'm thinking that as far as paranormal activity goes, it's going to be someone who is willing to go that extra little bit. And it may not be the scientist, it may not be, one of these PhDs or anything like that. It could be one of us, and it could be something that we find that actually gives us that final proof.
And I think that's how it's going to happen too. But we all, as paranormal researchers, investigators, we have to come together. We got to stop with the paranormal field is not exact. There's no exacts. We just don't have an understanding yet. And as far as other people's evidence or whatever, I mean, if you want to put a judgment on it, get more insight as to what are the events that led up to that evidence. Or you can't just base it on a picture on the internet somebody posts to share it and say, look, this is what I got, and then someone just randomly go on there and say, oh, it's crap.
Right.
And you just can't do that. You got to know more about it. But we have to come together as, like I said before, as investigators and researchers and help each other out, and not criticize each other, but come together as a team. And maybe at some point we will figure this out,
Thank you. Because you know what? That's one thing that I noticed this year. And it's just, in order to move forward, I think as a community, we have to drop the drama. We have to.
Right.
This is not a competition. No one's better than anybody else. And for some reason, every time someone does something or tries to move forward, there's always detractors. And the detractors always seem to, if you disagree with someone, that's fine. That's when discussion comes up. That's when a good, open conversation happens. But what we're seeing in this community is a lot of just negative. It's just drama. And this drama is going to keep us from making those discoveries.
Right, a lot of bashing, there's no really, positive input. If you disagree, you disagree, but you can disagree in a positive way. You don't have to disagree and say your evidence is garbage or no, it's lens flare, or no, it's this or that. You really don't know that. You should actually probably try to ask the person, well, what led up to that evidence? Are you seeing things? Why did you start snapping the camera to begin with? Is something happening in your house or in this area? I think there's a positive way to do that and not a negative way, and there's just so many people out there that are just willing. It's too easy, I guess, to be negative. It's too easy to fall off the wagon and say,
Right, and when I was doing research on orbs and things that I've come across while, when we do the show every week, Lucy and I do tons and tons of research, and so a lot of times I'll bookmark a lot of things, and I'll put them in a category and hopefully maybe save it for later because it may be something that's not related to the topic of the show, but it was kind of interesting. And I remember seeing a story, actually a couple of different, and I think there were blogs on some website and they were discussing orbs, and they were talking about colors of orbs, and they were going through all the colors of orbs. And one in particular that sort of I just saw a question mark over when I was reading it was what they call the black orb. Or, some of them were referencing it as a dark orb. But what are your thoughts, or had you heard of black orbs, and could you categorize a black orb as an orb, or would you possibly categorize it as maybe a shadow figure or a shadow object instead of an orb? Because to me, again, like what I was saying before, is an orb is something that emits light. And so if it's a dark orb or a black orb, could that still be an orb?
It's funny you brought that up because there's something that happened to me when my son was like 5 years old where we used to live. But as far as a black orb, remember I was talking about, again, I revert back to when I go diving and see bubbles in the water. Well, if we can invade an atmosphere like the water and put our oxygen down there, why can't space do that here on planet Earth? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And kind of like a bubble, you know what I mean?
Right.
In that form, anyway. But anyway, something weird happened when my son was about 5. We were outside, and my son was looking up. and he was just staring, and I was wondering what he was staring at. So I looked up, and he pointed to me. He said, "Daddy, look," and he's pointing, and I look up, and there's this weird. It was like a black sheet. It looked like a sheet of paper, but it was like floating down over our house towards us. I know it sounds really weird, but I got to tell you about this because it's just really weird. This thing was floating down, and I look up, and I'm thinking, well, it's a piece of paper, maybe some tar paper that came off a roof or something. But then as I'm watching it, it got almost rooftop level, and then it just slowly started going back up again, and then zipped off to the side and out where I couldn't see it anymore. It moved. I mean, it didn't act like a piece of paper, and there's no way it was wind because it went back up, straight back up, and then zipped off to one side. Now, I don't know what it was to this day. It's just something that occurred that I thought was very odd, and that's what kind of brought me to that idea that maybe somehow there's a way that our atmosphere is invaded by, as crazy as this sounds, like a vacuum-packed type plasma, which contains, the vacuum of space or something. I don't know, but I mean, it's just my way of a theory or just a way of looking at it, I guess.
No, and you made a great point before, and it's starting to click now with me about the whole idea of being underwater, and when we breathe, that creates the bubbles. It could be that there is some sort of dimensional spirit or interdimensional spirit or whatever it is. I'm not even going to label it because we don't know what it is or what they could be. And once they enter into our earthly realm, that they could be creating these figures or light or whatever, whatever anybody's experiencing as an after effect of their entrance into our space, our area. Right.
Oh my, yeah, exactly. In that way, because you see it happen all the time. When you're in the water, and if we send our guys out into space, they have to be in these basically bubbles to contain oxygen so they can breathe. So maybe that's just a natural way that they form.
Right.
From what they
right.
are.
And if everybody is different, like everybody says we all are, everybody is different in the way that they are creating that reaction or effect when they enter into our space. Or it could be a reflection of our energy that's within that area, and it's the connection between the interdimensional energy and our energy combining to create this effect. I don't know, I may be getting a little bit morbid and maybe getting a little out there, but that could be a reason too. But there's so many, different scenarios that you can come up with as possibilities that, again, it leads you to the bottom line of this topic is that you should not just discard it just because everybody else or a lot of people have been saying that it's just dust, it's just moisture. And you may be turning me a little bit, Lou. You may be turning me a little bit. I'm still going to have a little bit doubt. I always have that skeptic eye on things. But I can honestly give that opinion out now. I can honestly say that it could be a whole slew of many different scenarios.
I think that one point, what you just said, the way you just described it, is how we're going to get an understanding of this. This is what I honestly think, because I think that we have new ideas in quantum physics right now, and how things occur, and dimensional and all that kind of stuff. But I think this is going to be a reality, and just the way you described it at that point, I think is how we're going to get an understanding of this. It's going to happen. I don't know when. I hope it happens in my lifetime. But
I hope so
too. We're going to understand it.
Well, Lou, before we let you go, I just wanted to give you the opportunity, if there's anything that you want to sort of end the topic of orbs and possibly, I guess make a statement, or if there's anything that you want to convey to people out there, what would that be?
That we're studying the field of the paranormal, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, paranormal, we're investigating it because it's paranormal, and we really don't have the answers. And and we got to keep chugging until we get them. We get some answers, and that's all I can say basically. Other than it was my daughter's birthday today. And
happy
birthday!
And just want to say I love you, Kara, and she's always going to be my little bobblehead. So I had to say that.
Oh, happy birthday, Kara. Well, thank you so much, Lou, for coming on. It really was eye-opening, and you know what? I think you've probably inspired us to actually create a show on orbs. Believe it or not, we've never done a show on orbs at all, and it could be a hot topic that we can discuss, and hopefully maybe we can have you come on again and talk about it, because I think this conversation was really great, eye-opening. We didn't really answer anything. I don't think so. Maybe we didn't turn any heads or convince anyone yay or nay on this topic, but it was just good to just get it out there and start the conversation. So thank you, Lou.
Thank you very much for having me on. Thank you guys for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, Lou.
You too. Thank you guys.
All right, bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Lucy.
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't completely convinced, but he did open my eyes to a few things. I can see that there could be possibilities, and it's not that I never thought of it or never sort of conceived it in my head that there were possibilities to orbs. It was just there, when you try and provide proof of orbs, there's so many variables out there that can convince you that it is not. And, and I always come down to the idea of still pictures. It's so hard to say whether or not that they are orbs or that they are of some sort of element, matter, dust, environmental stuff or anything like that. It's so hard. But when you've got a video, I think you've got a good case on your hand to possibly try and convince someone that this could be of a spirit form or within the spirit world. I don't know. I
think he made his point eloquently. I really do. And you know what? The good thing about it is that maybe if it didn't convince you, at least it got you to think about it in a slightly different way. And maybe that change of thought will eventually convince you.
Yeah, and his whole, I guess, I'm at a loss for words tonight. I don't know why I can't think of words today. Maybe I'm just too exhausted. I guess his visual interpretation of going underwater and creating those bubbles, I guess, did it for me that could possibly relate to what orbs are as an effect of when spirits are in contact with you. And I've heard otherwise. I've heard that orbs are sort of like, and they've correlated it to like the headlights on a car. It's sort of again, a lack of a better phrase or statement, it's sort of like the rolling out of the red carpet as somebody walks through. And the orb is this red carpet, and it's sort of their means of travel, and it's not the actual spirit itself. And so it could be of that nature. It's just a whole slew. Some have said that it actually is the spirit form in its beginning stages, starting to form within the environment that you are within, and it is trying to gather energy, and that's what it's trying to do. So there's so many different scenarios that you can come up with or think of as possibilities for orbs, and I think they're all good, but I think honestly, we truly won't know. I think we truly will not know what 75% of the paranormal topics out there until we ourselves have crossed over.
Right. But until then, we can still search and we can still try to find these answers. And like I said, I honestly think that breakthrough, regardless of what it is, whether it be orbs, whether it be shadow people, anything, that breakthrough is not going to come through science. It's going to come through us, the investigators. I really do.
I agree. All right, so the phone lines are lighting up. Do you want to take the next caller?
Yeah.
Okay, we have area code 515. Hello, you are on the air with Anthony and Lucy.
On.
Hello.
Are you there, caller?
Yeah.
Who's this?
This is Denise.
Hi, Denise. How are you?
I'm fine, and you? Got a question. Good. What is up with Kirby?
Kirby who?
Kirby Robinson.
Oh my God, that name!
Yeah,
I have said I will never say that name ever again.
Yeah, but I have not heard about this explosive book. That's the question.
The
Remember,
book.
book.
I can tell you this. This much I do know because as an investigator, you always keep one eye on things that either you may or may not like. And so, as much as I dislike the gentleman, even though I respect what he does, because he is still trying to find the truth, as what we all are doing. He may be going about it the wrong way, but I still respect his mission. But I always keep one eye open on people of that nature. And so what I've gathered and what I have seen ever since we've had him on the show is that the book that he was going, or that he discussed that erupted on our show hugely, was the story about Gary Golka and his daughter's death. Yeah, and that erupted into a conversation that I think, and Lucy, I think you may agree, I think we're very proud of. I mean,
yeah.
Can you say any different?
No,
I'm proud of how it went. Yeah, I think you guys did an awesome
conversation, and I think people were able to give their opinions in addition to his. And honestly, as far as this person goes, I think in his own small world, he believes in his opinion and he believes it's right. And everyone has a right to their own opinion. But unfortunately, when that opinion infringes on other people's feelings and the way they believe, then I think there's an issue. And when people don't have the right to respond, I think that's where we have a problem. And I think that was illustrated beautifully on our show that night.
Absolutely.
We after that show, we were bashed by the gentleman in question and what I believe he had called his minions who were in the chat room that night as well. We were bashed. Lucy and I were both bashed. Our radio show was bashed. We were accused of things. There's just so many things that had gone on that we heard, we read, but we took the higher road and never commented because we felt as though, again, I hate to get into paranormal drama. I hate to get into that mix. And once I hear it or see it or feel it even, and Lucy, I think, is the same way, we step away. We walk away from it because it's right. No sense in getting involved in it. And so after that show, there was a lot of things that had gone on and a lot of words that were said and accused and whatnot or whatever. But lo and behold, I mean, I think it's been maybe 5 months, 4 months, maybe even longer than that. I can't even remember.
Like April or something that aired.
Has it been that long?
Was it Well, it must have been maybe like July. I'm not sure, but it's been several months, and it's been several months. I mean, yeah, it had to have been after April. It had to have been after April because I'm in my upstairs office when it happened.
Oh, so, he announced, and this was his big announcement during that show, was that he was going to do this book about Gary Golka and his daughter and the family, and what he called the truth of the story and what erupted into why he deserved or why he was the person that should be doing that and not the Golka family, which I completely agreed with, that he should not be doing that story. But it seems as though ever since that show that quote-unquote book, because I truly don't believe that there ever was a book, but I think that quote-unquote book was shelved and he has put out another book which is just getting completely boring by now, in my opinion, about paranormal state and the issues that have gone on, that he feels has gone on.
That book was out before because I did look at the reviews. There was 2 reviews on it. That book came out just before.
No, he just released a book on October. It was supposed to be done. I remember this because I was looking on Facebook right before Hurricane Sandy had hit us, and it was supposed to be released on October 29th, and he delayed it because of Hurricane Sandy, and I think it was out the week after. And it was another book about paranormal state, but the fact of, I think, one of the episodes about the exorcism, and I can't remember, I Am 6 episode, I think that was
I Am 6.
Yes, and so he had brought up another book, published another book on that subject, on that topic. That's probably the second one on that particular episode. But it's just another paranormal state. He's fixated on it, and you know what? That's his deal. That's his shtick. That's what's going to get him through life. He thinks he's going to, I guess get the fame and recognition because the things that he's quote unquote uncovering. But that's fine. I know paranormal state, the folks within PRS, they really don't care. And so he can continue to do that. But I have not heard anything about this Gary Golka book. And I don't think we ever will. That's my opinion.
All right. Well, I just kind of wondered about that because I know that another person had come on that knew Gary and had, said some stuff there. And I just wondered if anybody else knew, any updates there as far as that goes because, I mean, when you had your banner up, I thought he was going to go a different area there. And when he said Golka, I was like, whoa, wait a minute here, because I happened to knew the background on the Golka case, having lost a daughter myself. I had listened to that, and I went nuts in there. It was the first time I was in your chat room, and I'm like, whoa, I've never seen a chat room go as crazy as that did that night.
It erupted, and we applauded everybody who was listening and who was in chat and who called in that night. We applauded everyone because everyone spoke their mind, and we had no idea what he was going to announce. He had said to us a couple of days before the show started, it said, I'm going to give you breaking news. It's going to shatter the paranormal world, and we were kind of curious and kind of timid as to what it was going to be because I hate having someone who's going to announce something that we have no idea about because I like to at least have knowledge of things or at least know of something, but he gave us no hint. And it was funny, after the show, he had accused us of ambushing him, and our
How do
response...
you ambush if you don't know?
Right. That was, I mean, we never commented to him about it, but Lucy and I kept, we were talking to ourselves about it, and we said, how can we ambush him if we had no idea, and how could we plan calls and callers to come on if we had no idea what you were talking about or what you were going to bring up? It was just too funny.
It was too funny, and it was actually pretty sad because the whole way I felt about it, it was like, okay, here you have a person, and I hate to say it this way, but I think it was his opportunity to get what he considers recognition and whatever vendetta or whatever bad feelings he has towards somebody. It's his way of getting attention. And part of what we decided that we were just going to let it drop because this is what this person wants. They want attention. Mm-hmm. They want to be talked about. And we weren't going to give him that satisfaction. It was done. Well, as far as we were concerned, the subject was done.
Okay. All right. Well,
did that answer your question?
Well, yeah, kind of. It does. I'm just wondering if anybody else knows of any more, of how Gary handled it and stuff. Is I guess what I'm wondering, because I know, like I said, somebody else had piped up about it, and if anybody knows how Gary's doing and responding to it all. Have you guys talked to Gary or anything? Because I know that one caller had said that and stuff.
Mm. Well, if they are in chat and they know, or they've talked to Gary.
Yeah, it looks like somebody is in chat right now saying that they had talked to Gary and stuff, and they have talked to Gary and stuff. It looks like they have. So, I'd like to know. I'd like to know. So.
All right. So maybe they'll call in, or if maybe they're on the line right now. They're just
they're on
the
line. It looks like they're on the line now. So I'll get off here. Maybe everybody else can find out how he's doing, because I want to know. So I'll get off here so they can get on. Okay.
All right. Great. Thank you, Denise.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks for calling.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Lucy, you want to take the next caller?
Yeah, let's take the next caller.
Okay, area code 303. Hello, you're on the air with Anthony and Lucy.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Hi, who's that?
I was on that night. My name's Leanne. I'm with Spirit Realm Investigative Project. I am a friend of Gary Galka's. I was one of the people that called him out because I knew for a fact what was going on with that whole situation. I just recently spoke to Gary, and he told me that I had his permission to speak on his behalf. Kirby, basically, like you said, Anthony, he kind of dropped it, and the reason being is, for one, he fabricated, he lied that he got an okay from Gary, first of all, to write this book, when all he did was call Gary and talk to him about the EVPs that he had gotten on the show with GAC, with Zach and the boys.
Right, and I think that during the show, I don't know if it was you or if it was somebody else that had called in, where he not admitted to it, but he had mentioned that in the conversation, because that's what I gathered after I listened to the archive again, that it was because of that, and it was not specifically about the book itself.
Yeah, he did not talk about the book. That book never came up. Gary said, "What are you talking?" I got a hold of Gary. In fact, I believe that was the end of May, because it was during Memorial Weekend, and he was at his summer home. And I frantically kept on calling him because I needed to know, he needs to know, too, that something's being said to this magnitude. And he finally answered, and he was on vacation, and he said, that man never mentioned anything about a book. And he said, and I wouldn't give him the rights to do that anyway. That's my story and my daughter's story. And I said, well, that's what I thought. And he said, no, he just jumped around and talked about the EVPs, and I tried to explain to him that nothing was fabricated in the show. And he said he got off the phone and never said a word. And I said, well, Gary, he's boasting that he's going to write this book and tell your daughter's story. And he was, Gary, and I'm just going to tell people this right now. We talk about how mean people can be, how paranormal groups get attacked on a regular basis with evidence and such. There are people out there that thrive to hurt somebody, the skeptics or what have you. And what had happened to Gary because of this show that he put out with GAC, so many people came after him and tried to say his daughter was drunk and this was going on and it was her own fault. Mean, cruel things. Yeah. And, Gary's not a paranormal investigator. He makes equipment. He's really an engineer. He's a scientist. And I think it really hurt him that people could be so mean. And this kind of put the nail in the coffin, because he almost didn't even want to hear about it. He says, Leanna, I can't take it anymore. This is hurting me so bad. I cannot believe people can be so mean. And this is my daughter. This is her memory that they're trying to destroy. And I said, well, I'm not here to make you upset. I just want to know the truth. And he said, no, the man never said a word. And I said, well, you're supposed to be getting something in the mail. He's supposed to send you everything to okay. Well, that never happened. Right. And not only that, Gary is very on top of the legal aspects. He has sued other people already. And I think that, I can't go into detail, but that's part of it also.
Right.
So,
Gary,
that's never...
Had Gary listened to the show, do you know?
No, Gary I don't know if he really listened to it, because I told him everything, and he said it's too painful. Yeah. Lucy extended a hand to him, and I told him also that if he wanted to come on and tell his story, and he said, you know what, this stuff is so fresh with me right now, and the negativity is so overwhelming. I mean, he couldn't sleep at night. And we all have gone through it where people have done that to us, and it hurts us. And he's a nice guy. He's such a sensitive, beautiful man. And he just said, I can't deal with this anymore. I've got to break free. Now I'm going to tell you what's happened since. Gary is still going to create things, but his passion is now trying to help parents that have lost children. He has taken a different path. He said this is what he's supposed to do in life with his destiny. He is so tight with his daughter now, and there's so much communication. And I think Lucy will believe in this, too, because she's into the Wicca and all that the sensitive part, the more you're around it, the more you open up. And he's gotten to the point where he can communicate with her without all the bells and whistles. You can get to that level. It's just like psychics and mediums. They can get to that level of the dimension, and that's what's happening with him. And he is helping. So he helped me. My stepson committed suicide at 12, and he contacted him. It's beautiful that this is what's come of it, even though he had to go a rocky road to go there. But I think that he's happy now. I mean, I don't think probably Bill Chappell will probably be putting out more newer stuff now because that's his passion. And Gary's kind of said that he's kind of leaving that whole drama of the paranormal community because it burned him bad.
Yeah, I mean, he seems as though Gary sort of found what is truly meant to be for him and his family, and so, you know, even though it's sort of been a little bit of a rocky and treacherous road to get there, it seems as though he's found what is meant to be, and I applaud him and I congratulate him for doing that, even though, you know, people may say, oh, you know, he's not going to be making any more millimeters or anything like that, but I think it's good for him, and that's the best thing of all, that he's taking care of what he needs to take care of.
And he's still going to make the products because he wants us to have products, but it's not his all to be all anymore.
Right.
I mean, his focus.
That's part of what I think was our reasoning behind not talking about it anymore, because it's such a personal issue. And my heart goes out to Gary for what he went through. My heart goes out to anyone who has gone through that kind of situation. And to keep prolonging talking about it, what that man did was wrong, and it was negative, but I think he got what he got. You reap what you sow, and I know he did. And part of what we decided that we weren't going to talk about it anymore, we were going to leave it go, was totally out of respect for Gary, because I think it is a personal issue, and it's something that Gary himself has to have the privacy to do. And to continue to talk about it just keeps that negative energy going. Yeah.
It gives life to it, and we don't want to give life to that because it's negative and it's not right. And, you know, to keep talking about him, and that's why I don't want to even say his name. I don't want to give him the promotion. I don't want to highlight him because he's not worth it to me.
Well, I think that show, I don't think if that show would have happened that night, I think he would have continued to do what he set out to do. I think so that too. He didn't believe that he was going to get the recourse that he got, and he was going to get called out like he did.
And that's what I said to him. It was after one of the callers had called in, and again, I don't know if it was you or somebody else. It was me, afterwards I said to him, you know, you have to expect this. You know, you've got a history of books that you put out that have you know, bashed people personally, which he says he doesn't do, but I don't believe that. But you've bashed people personally and then bashed what they say, their beliefs, their life, their mission, their purpose, everything that you do, and you put these in these books. When you come out and you say that you're going to put this quote-unquote loving and whatever type of book about Gary Kalka's family, you know, you have to expect the backlash that you're going to get. And he said, oh, yeah, I know. And then afterwards it was like, you know, we put him up to it, we ambushed him, we did this, we did that, and the callers were all set up that way. I mean, he's just in a delusional state that he has no idea what is real and what is not.
Well, and I called him out on, you know, what he had written in his blog, that he said that Mel wasn't even really Gary's daughter. It was a demon talking to him. And I had just read that morning, you know, so if he says that these calls were set up, I can attest. I just found out about all that morning, that this is how cruel this man was. And I thought, if he says one word about Gary, I'm going to call in. And then, lo and behold, that was his big news to talk about this story. So then I thought, buddy, I know the truth, and I know that Gary would never do this, and that's why I called in. So, no, none of that was set up at all. You guys didn't even know what he was going to talk about.
No. We had no idea. And I mean, it comes with the territory, and like I said, and Lucy had said before, you know, there were comments made about us and about other people that were, you know, the callers and people in chat too, that he had put on his blog, and since then has removed. And he has removed, I believe, everything that he has written about on his blog, on his website, about Gary Gulka. And he denied that, but it's not there anymore. And so he knows he was wrong, and I hope that that show, I'm not going to say opened up his eyes, because I don't think it did, but I think it just showed him that what he possibly could be doing maybe is not right to some level, or it's some weird sense in his brain that it sort of clicked, and he said, I'm going to take everything off the blog, and I'm going to shelf this, or whatever it was with this book, and not do anything any further. So
I just think that he finally got his hand caught in the cookie jar, and somebody finally had ammunition and knew what the real story was and called him out on it. And I think he thought he was just going to get away with it. And that would have really hurt Gary if that would have went public, that book, because it was from a man who didn't even know anything about the situation and never cared to tell the truth to find out the truth. So, but I just wanted to let you guys know that Gary's overcome it. He's in a new direction, and it's sad that it had to come to this and he had to get hurt, but now he knows his purpose in life, and that's what's going to make him happy, and I think that's where he needed to go. And but I'm glad that we called out Kirby, and who knows, maybe he did learn a little bit, just maybe.
Maybe. We can only hope.
Oh, and I want to get back on the orb real quick. I posted a YouTube video that we've got of an orb, Anthony. I don't think you can deny that is not energy. It goes through the wall and comes back out. So if you can check it out on SRP3 on YouTube, I posted it on the chat. I would love to see what you think about it.
Can you post it on our Facebook page?
Sure.
All right, post it on there, because
I'm
probably going to lose it in chat. But post it on there. I'd love to see it.
Okay, yeah. It's towards the end, but I try to set my videos up so I can explain everything because of the skeptics.
Okay.
So.
All right.
All right,
Thank
guys.
You, Leah.
You have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so if you guys want to call in, the number is 661-244-9831. We have about 43 minutes left in the show. Lucy, did you want to say anything?
No, the subject's done. As far as I'm concerned, the subject is done.
Okay. On to the next. We have the next caller. Oh, somebody just dropped. Okay, we've got another caller here. I believe Gavin Ojason. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks. What about you?
Good, we're good.
Hi.
So what did you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I don't know really when it was. I think it was a couple of years ago. But basically what happened was it was me and my friend. And we were at home, and we were basically just hanging around at my house. And we were watching movies, and I live in backwoods, Montana. And so basically I looked out of my window because I started hearing things, and there was, like, not even lying, there was a raven on one of the branches staring directly at me. And it just stared at me for like probably a good 5 minutes. And finally I opened the window and tried to scream at it to get it away because it was like scaring the crap out of me because it was just staring there. And it just didn't move. It kept staring straight at me. And eventually I woke up in the middle of the night because this is a little while after I could finally get settled down after that scared the crap out of me. Anyways, eventually later I could actually fall asleep. And I woke up in like the middle of the night to some strange like tapping sound at the window. And the raven was actually sitting on the windowsill and just staring at me while I was sleeping.
Okay, when did this happen? How long ago?
Maybe a year or two ago.
What was going on in your life during that time? In your family life, in friends? Was there anything traumatic happened during that time?
Well, in 2010, my father and my grandfather both passed away in the same year.
Was that before the sighting of the raven, or after?
That was after, actually.
So you saw the raven after the deaths?
No, like
You saw the raven before.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I say that is because I've heard stories about the paranormal phenomenon, about ravens visiting humans, or the experience of visitations of ravens as a sort of forewarning of death, or I guess of devastation. It could be, it could be weather related. It could be fire in a home, or it could be death. Lucy, had you heard that also?
The first thing that comes to mind is that you live in Montana, okay, and there's a lot of Native American tribes in the area, and one of the things in Native American culture is, forebringers of news, and very possibly a raven can be considered as a forewarning. I don't want to say entity, but sometimes certain animals can show up, and they can be just messengers, So that was the first thing that popped in my mind, very possibly going back to some of the legends and cultures in the area, that it could be something like that.
Kevin, what's your belief in the paranormal?
I'm a very strong believer, actually.
Okay. Were you as strong prior to this experience or after?
Oh, yeah. My family's been paranormal ever since I was a little boy. And most of my family are empaths.
Okay.
So usually we can tell when another person is feeling down, or if something's happened to them or something like that. And I occasionally see auras, but...
So when you saw this raven, what feelings did you have? Just the fear? Did you feel fear, or did you...
It was kind of just it was almost like someone put a shroud of darkness over me.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone just kind of morning cloaks and stuff?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of felt like someone had put a morning cloak on me. And it just sat me down in a chair and said, basically, this is what has happened, this is what's going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to change it.
Well, it's typical with a person or within a family of sensitives or empaths that first of all, you tend to feel more than the average person. You feel more of the energy around you. You feel more of the spirits and their energies and their communications. You have that, I guess, that open road in between the two worlds or the two dimensions. And so the first thing, I could be completely wrong, and don't take my word as the word of God, but, to me what it sounds as though is that this experience is, because you and your family are empaths and sensitives, that it was they knew you would understand this, and so the openness of this raven to come forward and communicate this to you was a sense of giving you the forewarning of, and to prepare you and your family for the possibility of this, and to ease you into that situation a lot more. And a lot of people who are quote unquote non-sensitive get the same kind of communications, but they don't realize it, and
they don't recognize it.
Right, they don't feel it, and so because you are within the empath world, that it felt like that cloak, that overshadowing, and that complete blanket of information and communication that people then tend to feel frightened. They tend to feel afraid of it if they don't know it. You're always afraid of the unknown, and so that's your first reaction, which is natural. But I'm hoping now you sort of understand that it was just a communication to you, nothing of what everybody loves to go to right away is demonic or anything like that. It was more of a spiritual communication to you and your family, and to hopefully ease you into the situation that obviously no one has control over.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? I want to share something with you just to show that you're not alone. I'm an empath too, and obviously I must have been able to do this all of my life. And there is a story that my mother did share with me, and I had a favorite uncle that would come over to the house and visit with my dad. And this was my favorite uncle. I would run to him, and I had to be about maybe 3, 4 years old. And I would sit on his lap and laugh and talk with him. Well, one night he came over, and I would not go to him. My mother said that I was completely a different person, that I would not go near. I was almost like afraid of him. Well, what happened is he passed away the next day. And in my own way, now that I'm older and I understand a lot of what, is involved in being an empath and the paranormal and all that, I obviously had gotten a message, and I was able to see that something was going to come, something that was going to happen. So a lot of it has to do with your understanding of what it is. And like Anthony said, we all get these messages. It's not just people that are, classified as empaths. Unfortunately, we just have the tendency to absorb all the feelings that are around us. And for you, this manifested in a way where maybe you saw it as a raven, and maybe it was a message, and maybe it was, to help you understand what was coming. And unfortunately, sometimes we just don't understand. So it becomes scary. But I think as we go along and as we learn and as you explore your own abilities and what you feel, I think you'll begin to understand that it wasn't anything that was supposed to be frightening. You were probably just feeling what was going to transpire. So I honestly think that it's not something that was negative. It wasn't demonic. It was just a matter of your own abilities coming to the surface, and by not understanding exactly what they are, it was frightening.
So, Gavin, do you still feel as though it was obviously not right now by what we've just saying, but have you still been feeling that frightening effect of that experience?
No, it was just at the time, I think it was just the shock factor of seeing this when this had never happened to me before. I've never had any, animal spirit interactions ever. So.
Do you understand, from your own accord of reading into it or looking things up about it, do you realize now what that could be or what that experience possibly was for you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I encourage you to read more about it, and as Lucy was saying, because Lucy comes from a Cherokee descent, so I would encourage you to read more, if you have not already been doing so, read more about Native American culture, and a lot of their spiritual beliefs, and it could possibly explain this scenario and this experience with you, but it could also explain what other things have been going on in the experiences, because I'm sure there's other experiences that you've had that you're just not quite sure of. But I encourage you just to read more and just to research a lot more and open up your mind.
There's 2 areas that you need to explore. You need to explore your own abilities. You need to explore your feelings, what you're able to feel, and what is happening to you within your own world. And then the second part, you need to read up on the area where you're living. Look into the tribes that are there. Look into their culture. Look into their legends. There may be something within those legends that might explain a little bit further. Native Americans, we truly believe in animal communication. Animals are just like us. They have spirits. They have souls. And do the research into the culture. Do the research into the area, but most of all, do the research into your own abilities. You'll be very surprised what you'll find.
Does that answer that, Gavin?
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you for calling in. We appreciate your call.
Thank you, Gavin.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we got one more caller. Lucy, you ready?
Yes.
You feeling okay? You got your strength?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, we've got area code 503. Hello, you're on the air with Anthony and Lucy.
Hello, this is Salvo.
Hey, Salvo, how are you?
Stressed, but okay.
So what do you
that
want
time
to
of the year.
Yeah. especially lovely when your laptop goes boom and then the company that made it decides to try to give you the runaround.
Oh.
Yeah.
So is the word. So what's your question tonight?
Well, mostly I'm calling in because it's nice to speak to the paranormal community. I'm a paranormal investigator, more freelance.
Okay, great.
I was partnered with a group, but I'm not really willing to name names at the moment. I wasn't very impressed with them, so.
Okay.
But,
fair enough.
I'm trying to think of a way to introduce myself here. I come from a family of scientists, so my stance is a lot more on the skeptic side, but I also have enough information to know that there is something out there. I'm just not willing to apply a label to it.
Okay.
Generally, my approach is spitballing. I just generally assume that about 94% of what I hear is fake, because as much as you have the attention seekers, like this guy who called into your show a while ago, you also have the attention seekers on the opposing side who are doing it simply for attention. I have heard a lot of fake stories and other things that are contradicted themselves in a great many ways. But I did kind of want to briefly address what you guys were saying about orbs. When I was sharing that earlier, with orbs, I am going to say, I'm more often than not inclined to say it's dust, or it is water, or it's everything else, or a great number of things, because there are a lot of things that can interact with the camera and create other things. But there is one specific case when I was doing an investigation with said group. We were in a house, and we had a video camera going. It didn't really pick up much, but there was a point over the span of maybe about 3 or 4 seconds. I was in a room. We were deliberately being loud and obnoxious, trying to rile up anything that might be there. And at one point, one of the women on the team took a photo of me, and there was a bright spot over my head. Round, but very focused, very bright. It actually stood out a lot more, which instantly told me it wasn't dust. I was thinking maybe a reflection off the lamp above me, but it was still a little too bright, a little too focused, and there wasn't really any angle in which I could see in which it would be bouncing off of a glass surface or a metal surface of some kind. But in and of itself, that was odd. But where the oddness, but the next, within 2 seconds after that, another part of the team took another photo in a completely different room, and that same effect appeared over the head of someone else. Now,
I can tell you right now what my opinion is of that and what could have caused it, but I'm going to let you continue.
Okay, well, I was going to say, I mean, again, I'm not really willing to label things. I always try to rule out the possible before anything else, because coming from a scientific background, the one thing I do know is that anything that exists in our universe, no matter what it is, still has to adhere to the laws of physics. So,
I tend to disagree with that, but I respect what your opinion of it, and there is some truth to it. But I have more of an open mind to things, but that's just my nature.
Hold on a second. I'm on the phone. I apologize.
That's okay.
Obnoxious roommate. But yeah, well, it's, I don't go out there intending to bash people or to shut them down. But to an extent, you guys, or what you guys were saying earlier is right. There's a lot that we're still learning about quantum physics. There's a lot we're still learning about physics, and I'm not, but I still approach it from the standpoint that everything still works. Atoms, molecules, all interact, and they lead to different reactions. The bubble theory that I heard about orbs earlier did pose an interesting idea, although I was thinking more about the mechanics of it, and I'm not saying it's plausible. It's a possibility that comes into my mind. I work with theories. A theory is not a fact. It's just something that I will try to gather evidence, and if I get evidence that tends to lean toward that theory, then it gives that theory a bit more weight for me.
Right.
But it did pose the idea of the bubble. I'm trying to think of a way to explain it, but basically a wall of energy that would protect the occupant while still allowing it to interact with the surroundings, if that makes any sense.
Perfect sense.
But I'm kind of scattered. But yeah, it's.
So
like
do you have a belief that there is a possibility that orbs could exist as a spirit of some sort of spiritual form of non-earthly environmental matter?
I will tell you that as far as my personal beliefs go, I am not. Like I said, I'm not really willing to label something per se. I mean, I know there's something out there, and I know from my own interactions, I know it's intelligent. I have recorded specific responses to questions that I have asked. I have recorded specific and creative responses to things I have requested. Okay. Such as, I'm sure we're all familiar with the, if there's anyone here, please rap twice.
Right.
I've gotten a few interesting variants and responses to that, which tells me that obviously I'm dealing with something intelligent that can hear me and interact with me. But to be honest, my personal pet theory that I'm kind of working with is, I mean, a lot of people like to throw around the term spirits. They like to talk about ghosts and everything else, and it tends to be one of the biggest fixations in the paranormal world is ghosts, life after death. Mm-hmm. But what if there's more than that? My theory is, what if there are life forms that exist around us at all times, things that we can't see, that we have never seen? Mm-hmm. Or perhaps we did. Myths often tend to have some basis in truth. Now, I'm not saying, big reptilian dragons or anything like that, but there tends to usually be a kernel of truth.
I agree with you, and that's why we were talking earlier about it, possibly being interdimensional beings of some sort. And I think when people say that, they automatically think spirits or ghosts, but it could be time travelers, it could be aliens, and that's their form in this realm. It could be a whole slew of things, and not just spirit form of what we know to be spirit form.
Yeah. One analogy I can convey to you. Now, about 5 years ago, my mother died. And it was rather hard on all of us. But there was a point after my mother died, maybe a few months afterwards. Now, let me clarify, I really am very, very skeptical about any stories I hear or anything else. But I do trust this source, specifically because it's my little sister. And it was early morning. She was getting ready to go to school. And she came in, told me she was leaving. And I said, all right, have a good day at school. She went out the door. About 3 minutes later, I hear the door open again, and she comes into the room bawling. And the first words were, I miss Mom, which made me go over and hug her and say, yeah, I miss Mom too, and comfort her. But then the part that surprised me was about 2 seconds after that, when she suddenly started saying that as she was walking toward the bus, she turned, looked down the block behind her, and saw a 5-foot-tall, shadowy man staring at her, who then proceeded to turn left, get down on all fours, turn into a cat, and run off. Which struck me as pretty odd and oddly specific from my 12-year-old sister.
Mm-hmm. Now, her reaction then to come back in the home was the fact that she missed the security of her mom and she was frightened?
I think it was a bit of both. I think she was scared and it frightened her, and it being so soon after Mother, her first instinct was to run to Mother, but Mom wasn't around anymore, so that might, I mean, her emotional state was rather complex at the time. Our emotional states were all very complex at the time. We had
and that's usually That's usually the skeptical view, is that mostly people, after a loved one passes away, and it's typically with a spouse, and the living spouse then typically it's almost guaranteed within a week or two of the death, have claimed experiences of their spouse coming forward and visiting them and communicating with them, visually seeing them, and then the skeptics that are out there.
If I can interject, I kind of know what you're talking about. One of the more common things I've heard of is dreams.
Yes, I mean it's in all forms, and there's the one side that says that that's how spirits communicate with you, but then it's the other side where the skeptics say that it's because you're going through this traumatic experience that of course that's what's going to happen, and what you're going to interpret as happening as a visitation or a vision or a communication of some sort. So, I've said this tons. I don't think we will ever truly prove life after death until after we passed. I think that's the only way that we're truly going to know the answer to death.
And, I will disagree with you to an extent there. See, you guys were talking earlier about paranormal investigators and scientists not really being willing to support them. Now, coming from a scientific background, my honest take on this is that we are the new scientists.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of threw an analogy earlier there about a lot of scientists who before were coming out with theories and people thought they were ridiculous, they were silly, they were stupid, and ignoring them until they gathered enough evidence where they were able to push it in front of the others and say, this is what is, I have proof now.
Right.
Now, I mean, it's going to take us a while, and obviously there are some of us who are a bit more sensationalist and showy than others. Again, I won't name names, but I'm sure we all know people like that. I tend to approach it more from a serious standpoint. I mean, I know in this conversation I seem pretty erratic because it's been a weird day, but but the point is, I mean, we will get there. We can get there, although it's just a question of approaching it and looking at things logically to an extent. I mean, obviously, a part of you has to be willing to accept that we don't know everything. In fact, that's the basis for my rule. As much as I lean toward the science side, much like the statement I made about physics, I also know there's a lot we do not know. There's a lot we still have to uncover, and even rock solid theories. Einstein's theory of relativity. Now, from what I've heard, some scientists are looking at that and finding small errors, not big ones, but small ones that, again, create more possibilities.
Right.
But
and from what I've heard, that scientists are now exploring the idea of more dimensions on top of the 11 that I've heard already. There's a possibility of even more dimensions. So yeah, there is a lot of revisitation and going back, and I think that's why people are called researchers. People like us are called investigators. We're still searching for that truth, and we always will be.
Well, there's a specific, I'm not trying to think of the right word, slant may not be the right word, but tangent, kind of a focus that I've been working with. And I have a lot of Irish, Scottish, and Welsh ancestry, and I cling to that part of my heritage. But in addition, one of my fascinations has been with the pagan holidays, or Samhain, or All Hallows Eve. I am pretty sure you've heard, we've all heard the stories about the belief that is the time in which our world and other worlds are at the thinnest.
Right.
And I've been kind of leaning more toward that tangent, trying to see about proving it. But one of the ways I, as an investigator, would prefer to properly, or would consider a proper investigation, or what I would consider a proper investigation, would be a bit more than what you see on a lot of the shows at night. It would be going into a location, spending a considerable amount of time there, getting a lot of information, a lot of readings, a lot of data from one location, then analyzing it, rather than this group I was with. We would go into a place, we'd spend 2 hours there, and then come out saying either it was haunted or it wasn't. One of the major reasons I kind of left them, because you can't get reliable information that way.
Well,
no, and a lot of locations. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lucy.
Well, on that note, a lot of locations we can't go in for long periods of time, and unfortunately, due to cost and due to locations, a lot of times people aren't allowed to be in a location for a long period of time. So unfortunately, when you do have a group or investigators going in, they're only going by the time that they have there. And
well, no, Lucy, I think what he's talking about is possibly, not just one night. It's a continuous, repetitive, sort of a real investigation of a location and going there.
Yeah.
You know, you base it on seasons. Number one, you should be going to locations in every season because that's when you can really find out what happens at that location during the wintertime, during the summertime. You can figure out if the creeks are created by the environment, and that's the possible reasons as to why there's noises and why there's footsteps or whatever it is, and you know, and all that, you know, greatness or whatever. But I think that's what you were talking about, right?
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was saying. I mean, now obviously in ideal conditions, it would be nice to set up a permanent base camp, but that, you know, that's not really always a possibility. In fact, it's very, very rare. But I know one place I would really love to go to is you've seen Destination Truth, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the few shows I will give any real credence to specifically. I've kind of double-checked a couple of their investigations myself, but there was an episode they did regarding a circle in Romania.
Mhm. Yes.
And that's a spot I personally would actually love to spend a lot of time at. And given the fact it's in the middle of the forest and everything else, you should be able to set up a reasonable research team there.
Right. I encourage you to do that. I mean, that's what you are. You're an investigator. You're trying to find an answer, so why not? You know, create that mission for yourself. Create it and go for it. I mean, I encourage it. Some people are you know, not willing to do that. They want to hit a location and move on and go to somewhere else and experience something. And you get those comments a lot of times when people say that, you know, oh, I've been to that one. It's not haunted. It's not haunted. But you know what? People have said this, and we've said this so many times, that you go to a place that they claim to be haunted or is known to be haunted by other people, and you go there and nothing happens. Doesn't mean that it's not haunted. It just means that the spirits either don't want to communicate with you that night, two, may not be around that day because, you know, they don't just stay in one area. A lot of them don't. And it just may be that they just are not feeding off of your energy. You may be giving off something wrong that they don't want to communicate with. So you have to, in yourself, you have to find the reason why, but also, too, you have to continually go to a location to truly find an answer.
I agree. And, you know, and I guess to kind of add on, we also live in a very ADD nation. I mean, people want results and they want them now.
Right.
So
Lucy knows all about ADD.
I have ADD.
Yeah. I'm
well,
ADD and autistic. Makes things fun.
Well, you're what we would call, Lucy, what is it, Crystal? Or
yes.
Is it Crystal Child?
Yes.
We've done a show on indigo and crystal and rainbow children, and we've found some really fascinating stuff about indigos in children and in adults and crystal children, and how they are here to forewarn us. And they sort of correlates back to autistic people who have autistic, who are have Asperger's syndrome, ADD, and ADHD, and how it's an interesting topic to actually to research. And I would encourage you to actually look into it if you haven't already. And it could possibly explain a lot of the things that you may be going through or may have experienced or learned, or how you've learned that
or how you
could
interpret what you've found.
Exactly.
Might be that might be interesting. I know one of the major ways I dealt with it, especially after my mother died, was mostly by meditating. Whenever I felt something specific, I would sit down, I would focus on it, try to figure out what was causing the specific emotion, and just come to terms with it. And it's also the way I grieved. But ironically, as a side effect, it helped me kind of come out of my shell a bit more as a person.
That's the perfect way to do it. And I encourage that, and I've said this to Lucy all the time, you have to take a break. You have to not so much meditate if people don't like that word or like to do that, but you need to take the break and be in peace and quiet for a certain amount of time to slow down all the processes that are going on in your mind, so that you can then recalculate and then move forward again.
Yeah, you know, with what you said about some people not liking the word meditation, I'm kind of wondering, is that because have you run into people who don't like it because of a spiritual connotation, or?
Well, people I know, they think it's New Age, meditation. It's the Om. You're sitting there, in Indian style, and doing that. Again, it all comes down to people's perception and visualization of the words that you say, and that's where we get into a lot of the disagreements within the paranormal field, because when people say spirit, it's like, to me, it's comforting. To other people, it's frightening. To other people, it's hogwash. It's just the word itself alone. It can create so many reactions out of people and that's where you get those, not so nice, comments or reactions from. So
You know what? I am one of those people that I don't particularly like the word meditation, and the only reason why is because there is so much activity going on in my head that it is almost painful to try to stop and slow down sometimes. It really is. And that's part of the ADD.
And believe me, I know what you mean. I can understand. It's something I had to work at to better understand. And for me, meditation is not necessarily a spiritual thing. It's just about, again, understanding yourself, being able to analyze yourself.
Right.
It's, more or less kind of navigating your mind in a metaphorical way. It's identifying specific thoughts or feelings or everything else, and just kind of putting two and two together and basically mapping out a chart of your mind so that you can kind of better understand how you work. Well,
Salvo, this was an interesting conversation. I really want to thank you for calling in. I mean, we went through not just one topic. We went through a lot of topics, so it was great to have you on.
Well, thank you. And, I might have to see about calling in sometime again.
Oh, great. I mean, we're on Blog Talk Radio. We have a Facebook page, Paranormal Review Radio. Check us out. You can see upcoming shows that we've got. And if you're interested, you can tune in and call up. So thank you for calling in. Thanks, Salvo.
Yeah, have a great night. And Happy New Year.
Have a great night.
Wow,
we've got,
that was great.
That was great. We've got 9 minutes. And, okay. Can you recap, Lucy? We went through a lot.
We went through an awful lot. We went through Orbs. We went through a past show with a negative person. We went through meditation. We went through paranormal investigating. We went through, oh my God, we went through a lot. This was awesome.
It's so funny to hear an ADD person recap.
It's hard.
I know. It's not easy. And I've always said to you, meditation and just having some calm, quiet time to yourself is not easy. Even for a normal person, It's not easy. And I'm not saying you're not normal. I should not say that. Sorry. But for for a person who does not have ADD, it is still hard. First of all, to find that time to do that. Number one, and number two, to be able to have that shutdown, that complete shutdown and concentration on yourself, on your inner self, to do that is hard for a non-ADD person or non-ADHD person even too. So it's not easy. It's not easy. You just have to put some effort into it, Lucy.
But it's hard. It's hard to stop my mind sometimes because it's constantly going. I mean, I've done it. I've done it to you. I've done it to other people where I'm on one train and all of a sudden here comes the bus going across and I'm on that next bus. It's very
Lucy, is the microphone near your mouth?
Yes, it is.
Now it is.
Sorry. But it is difficult. It's very difficult for me to do. It's hard.
All right. Well, I think we touched on a lot of topics tonight, and I'm always leery about doing these open mic nights, not on who's going to call, but on whether or not we're going to get topics. And so what I usually do is create a little list of topics that if nobody calls in or it's not a happening night, that I have some topics that I can bring up. And the other one that I wanted to get to, if no one did call in with stuff to talk about, was what kind of paranormal evidence will finally be proof of life after death. And so I kind of contemplated this during the week and was thinking about it, and I had some theories and I had done some research on it, but you know what? This may be a good topic for another show. I think, obviously we only have 6 minutes left in this one, and there's no way that we can discuss it all, but I think it's just a good topic to throw out there even to our listeners right now or people who are listening on the archive, is what kind of paranormal evidence will finally be proof? What to you is proof? Or what can you provide as proof for people, or even for yourself, to finally say, yes, there is life after death? Because to me, there have been a slew of evidence. I mean, thousands upon thousands of pieces of evidence, video and pictures and audio and everything else that have been put forth, not just by us and not just by you guys who are out there, but there are so many people out there, not just on television either. What would finally be the proof? What more does, society want from the paranormal community to say, okay, yes, now I believe, or yes, you know what, I believe that there could be life after death, when there's so many skeptics out there who still do not believe. So maybe this is a topic for another show. What do you think, Lucy?
I think so. I think we really could open a really good discussion on it, and I think our listeners are up to the task. I really do.
All right, cool. So maybe we'll set up another show. I know we've got pretty much our shows lined up till mid-February already, and if there is a cancellation, maybe we'll pop this one in there. But maybe check back with us. Maybe mid-February, maybe we'll have a guest on this, and it'll be a little bit interesting. Because I found some research, and I found some professors in universities that have talked about this and had written about this. And there are some folks within the paranormal field, what people like to call paracelebs, who have thoughts on this. And so maybe we can sort of try and grab one of them to come on our show and talk about it. But what do you say we move on to the fan of the week?
Okay. The Paranormal Review... Oh, God, here comes the ADD. The Paranormal Radio Review Fan of the Week.
Wait a minute. You just did ADD again.
Oh,
say that again.
The Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week.
There you go.
I'm dyslexic, too. Okay,
I see that.
This week is Alfredo Garcia, Jr. of Lomita, California. He is a retired military officer. His favorite quotations are, "Make it so," "Infinite diversity in infinite combinations." He likes photography, astronomy, marathon running. He loves this really awesome page called Tarot, the Story Within, which happens to be mine. And he also likes Paranormal Review Radio. And he posts on our page, and he's an awesome fan. And thank you so much, Alfredo, for being a fan and for joining us every week.
Is that why you made him fan of the week, because he likes your website?
No. I found that out afterwards.
Uh-huh.
You know what? Do you want to briefly just kind of mention what our next few shows are going to be?
Yeah, well, why don't you do that?
Okay. Coming up January, we promised you that we were going to do some new topics, great topics. Well, January 4th, we are going to talk about astral projection. January 11th, we have, if you remember from our photo scrying episode, we have Robin Marie coming back, and she's going to share with us her predictions for 2013. On January 18th, we have the Monroe Institute. And, Anthony, you know a little bit more about them than I do.
I'm not going to say anything because this place is outstanding. It is, we saw them on, I can't remember if it was the History Channel or Bio Channel. They did a segment on them.
It was
They
Bio
are amazing, and I can't wait to have them. We actually will have the president of the Monroe Institute on to talk about what research experiments that they do with folks and their results that they actually capture. But we've got about a minute and 50 seconds left, so maybe just give a couple more.
Okay, we confirmed today. We're going to reschedule. Brian Kalek is coming back, and he'll be here on February 1st. And then also, too, finally today, we also confirmed Rob Goutreau. He's a medium and a meteorologist, and he will be here on February 8th. So,
awesome.
I knew this would be a great night. As usual, our fans never let us down. We have the best group of outspoken, intelligent, and fun people that listen to the show. We want to thank everyone for participating tonight. Let's continue this discussion that we started tonight all throughout 2013. Okay? Who knows where it's going to take us and where we're going to get there? So speaking of getting there, have you ever wanted to be somewhere else? And not just because the company was bad, but to actually be able to hear and see what's going on somewhere else in a different location or a different dimension. If we could really leave our physical bodies and send our awareness beyond the limits of our bodies, well, next week for the first show of 2013, we're going to look at this phenomenon. Is it real? Can we really travel to another plane of existence, or is it just part of our imagination? Join us next Friday night as we explore out-of-body experiences, astral projection. We'll also take part in a live astral projection lesson to see if we can astral project together on the air. So as we move into 2012 and move into 2013, Anthony and I would like to thank you all for the support and love you have shown us. You're a big part of the show, and we look forward to a new year of great topics, great guests, great times with the best fans in the world. Anthony, thank you for making this a fantastic year, and I know this next year is going to be even better. So on that note, dear friends, we wish you a safe and happy Paranormal New Year.
Good night.
Good night.
Paranormal Review Radio.